and they shall turn away their ears from the truth and shall be turned unto fables. I've read a lot of books in my life, and I've had a lot of books in my life. I've had probably a large library if I had ended up keeping all those books that I've had. And one thing I've learned, and this is not a new discovery for me, is that most of the books are just full of a bunch of junk. The Bible is the book that you really need to stick to. It's the one that I'm going to stick to. I don't know about you, but that's where the truth is. Most of the books that the world gives you, including most of the ones that schools ask you to read and study and memorize and test on, are full of untruth. They're full of things that are going to take you away from the Bible. They're going to take you away from God. They're Antichrist. Once you start there, a lot of things will become more clear to you. And one of the books I kept, and some of the books I've kept over years, is because I've gone back to see how untrue they were, if I can put it that way. So I can point out to you and to other people what's going on with them, how they match up with the Bible. Because I didn't see that as a boy, teenager, young man. And really these messages, the things I write and the things that I say on MP3 or video or whatever, are for my kids, for my family. They're a record for them. There are things that I wish people had told me. I've said that before in this ministry. I wish people had told me some things. But I've had to look back, and with hindsight, I can see they either didn't know them, people who are older than me, people who I consider mentors, people who helped raise me. They either didn't know, or they were too afraid or too conditioned to go against what pop culture and what education and educated people say. And I'm not afraid. I don't have some big platform. I'm not the pastor of a church. I'm not some professor. I'm not famous and I'm not rich. Again, I'm making this for people who are close to me, and anybody else who might benefit from them, that's great. And right now we're looking at one of the textbooks that I kept from school. It's a history book. And most of the history, if it doesn't match up with the Bible, let's just get right to the point. We're going to cut across the field in a hurry, like I heard one brother say. If it doesn't match up with the Bible, you just need to throw it away. And this is a history book, a history of world societies. And I took some snapshots of just one of the first pages in that textbook. It's a very large textbook. And God willing, over time, we're going to go back over some of this stuff. As I say, we just do this bite by bite here, because we just don't have time to spend hours making messages and videos and recordings of this stuff. I got a life, and I'm sure you do too. And most people's attention span can't take more than about 10, 15, 20 minutes anyway, if that. So this first page is taking you from the beginning of Earth, basically, and bringing you up to recorded history. And already, this is the first page of this textbook. They're going to lie already. They're not matching up with the Bible already. Now, if you don't believe the Bible and you think that's a lie too, you're probably in the wrong place, and you might want to take it on up the road here. But otherwise, just understand, we're going to build everything around the Bible here. That's what I'm going to teach people who allow me to teach. You know, my children and other people. It builds from the Bible. The Bible is the source of all truth. Jesus is the source of everything. All existence only exists and consists because of him. We start there. Most people are going to mock what I just said, obviously. That's what they're supposed to do. I'm not angry or offended by that, because most people are going to end up headed to destruction. They're going to be on the broad way, headed to hellfire. We just believe in being plain and direct here. There's only going to be a few who are going to stay on that narrow path, going through the straight gate, and who are going to end up in a good place at the end of all this. Now remember, we were talking about dumb, smart people. 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 7, ever learning and never able to come to the knowledge of the truth. That describes most people who are, as I say, quote unquote, educated, graduates of schools, and I'm including Bible schools and seminaries too. You're too educated. You've educated yourself out of a belief in Christ. And that really began to happen to me when I was in school. I graduated. I have a degree. And really, college ruined me for some years. I actually had a stronger faith in my teens than I did at the end of my 20s. And it was mostly, I would say, because I went to a university, and it was a long time before I could look back and say this. Those professors and just the environment of being at that college, or any college, basically, is going to drive faith in Jesus Christ out of you. That's what it's designed to do. And look at the first page of this book. It said, before the dawn of history, bands of people across the earth slowly developed numerous cultures. So they're talking about the dawn of history. They don't really give you a real idea of how long they're talking about here. They're talking about human beings abandoning their life of roaming and hunting to settle in stable agricultural communities. They're being very vague here about their timelines. Now, the people who believe in evolution and the Big Bang and all that foolishness, and it is foolishness, they're lies, they're fables, they're stories, they're myths. People call the Bible a myth, but then they believe in evolution and the Big Bang, and they have it backwards. And those people are going to say that hundreds of thousands or millions of years have passed before we have any recorded history. And none of that stuff makes sense, because you're acting as if mankind, men and women, have been here hundreds of thousands of years, evolving through all these changes in appearance and intelligence and ways, and none of it can be found. You say, oh, some of it is found, it's in the museums. Those are not real skulls. Those are not real artifacts. Those have been manufactured. Most of these museums are there for entertainment. It's not real history. I understand that goes against everything that the schools are going to teach you. I'm going to say it straight out. There are a bunch of lies. And if you need to lie to pass those tests, then I guess do what you have to do. But they are lies. It doesn't match up with the Bible. It denies the Bible. It denies the real God of all creation. And talks about Neanderthals and cavemen and all this kind of stuff. It's not real history. But you're going to feel smart because you've studied all this stuff. I'm speaking of myself, but I know I'm speaking of many, many other people all over the world. Romans chapter 1, verse 22, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools and changed the glory of the uncorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. This describes most schools now. This describes the educated people now. This describes pop culture, popular media, social media. Everybody thinks they're really smart. Everybody, or most people, grand majority of people, they're mocking the Bible. They're mocking that account of creation and that account of history. And as I say often, that tells me that the Bible is true, because so many people can't stop attacking it. Why do so many different people attack the Bible? They don't come together against any other thing. And what we know is that history and languages, historical records, all of that, they can't find anybody. When I say they, I mean these archaeologists and people who do this stuff for a living. And I don't believe most of them are trustworthy. But even they can't find anything that goes back beyond about 5,000 years. I remember when I was young and I would hear people say, hey, according to the Bible, or the earth itself is probably only about 6,000 years old, certainly less than 7,000 years old. And people would laugh, and I didn't know what to think. I remember kind of being confused and thinking, I believe the Bible, but that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like what they told me in school. That doesn't sound like all the books I read. And I would be silent and almost ashamed of what these Bible believers would say. No, the earth is only 6,000 years old. And they were disagreeing with the professors and all the smart people that I knew on TV. But now I see that they were professing themselves to be wise, and they were fools. All these people who are talking about millions of years and dinosaurs being wiped out by comets. Those are just more fables. They're more myths. They're more lies. I'm going to go with the Bible. And just so you know, if you're a brother or sister in the faith and you're feeling ashamed, and you're feeling like you need to be silent in the face of all the educated people who are so smart and looking down their nose, peering over their glasses at you over this stuff, they can't prove that what I'm saying is wrong. They can't prove that the Bible's wrong. I always remember that. The people who are mocking the Bible, who disbelieve it, they can't disprove it. Now, you can't prove it's true, but that just puts us all on the same level. The Bible's not really meant to be proven in an intellectual way or with debate or with physical proof or any of that. It is a faith that you have to have. And of course, again, most people are going to roll their eyes and mock when I say that. But that's the bottom line of it. You have to get to the point where you don't have to have that tangible evidence, because they don't have tangible evidence that it's wrong. You have to get to the point where you just have a faith that God is capable of passing down his words, and that there is a such thing as the word of God, first of all, and that he's capable of preserving it for all generations forever and passing it down to us through the ages, through the centuries, and putting it in your hand right now in the form of the King James Bible. Now you're going to see at the bottom of this page 4 of this history book that I kept, it's going to start talking about young Charles Darwin, 1831. Already is bringing him into it. So of course, you know, the lies are already there. It talks about Darwin's voyage on the HMS Beagle to South America and the Pacific Ocean. Now, of course, again, it gets vague right there. In the course of that 5-year voyage, he became convinced, Darwin did, that species of animals and human beings had evolved from lower forms. At first, Darwin was reluctant to publicize his theories because they ran counter to the biblical account of creation. Now, if we get a chance, as we go through this textbook over the next few weeks or months or however long this takes, you're going to notice this textbook keeps talking about the Bible, which proves my point. As I said earlier, they always got to go back to the Bible. Every time. That's their job. That's the university and college's job. That's the public school's job. That's the media's job. That's most people in your family's job. And that's some church's job, is to say that the Bible's not true. God, what do you mean churches saying the Bible's not true? They're going to cut it up and clip it up. In the church even. Some churches. Or I would say many churches in the 21st century. They're going to take pieces of it and they're going to spit out the tough meat of the word. But we're talking about Darwin here. Darwin didn't want to publicize his theories about evolution because they ran counter to the biblical account of creation, which claimed that God had made Adam in one day. Well, that's the account I believe. That's what it says right there in Genesis. And you can't disprove that, whoever you are right now. They can't disprove that. But finally, however, in 1859, Darwin published On the Origin of Species, famous book there. And then he followed with The Descent of Man, in which he argued that human beings and apes descended from a common ancestor. It's just more lies. Darwin was a liar, and there's very little doubt he's burning in hell right now. Because you got to think about how many people this man led away from the truth. You don't think God is angry about that? Even before Darwin proclaimed his theories, evidence to support them had come to light. And it's talking about fossilized bones of another form of a human being were discovered in Germany. The Neanderthal man, and you don't know if these fossilized remains of this so-called Neanderthal man were real or made somewhere by an artist. And I believe it was the latter. I believe somebody just made that up. Some of that has been proven, that a lot of the bones found from these fake dinosaurs and fake ape-like men, they were made by people. They say the Neanderthal man was clearly a human being and not an ape. It's proof of Darwin's theory that Homo sapiens, that is the humans that we are today, had evolved from less developed forms. And we're talking about this because the Bible is just true, and it's unrelenting. It's uncompromising in what it says. It's firm. But this Darwin stuff, he's part of a line. He wasn't the first one to talk about evolution and these kind of things. If you know your history about that stuff, he's just the face of it that we know today. But the point I'm making is Darwin and his peers and the people who have talked like him and who believe like him, their strength is that they can keep saying, we don't know the whole story. We're still adding and we're still learning onto all this stuff. And so they can always say, this is not complete yet. We're still figuring this out. See what I'm saying? They can always say, well, we're still dating this stuff. Like right here, it says the fossil remains of primitive unicellular organisms can be dated back roughly 2.5 billion years. Obvious lie right there. This earth is not that old. And so then this textbook, again, we're on the first page. The fossil record is far from complete. Thus, the whole story of evolution cannot yet be known. So they're going to just keep building and adding on to this lie. The lies just keep building on to each other. Because then, I guess Darwin is gone by this time. Then we got somebody, or a family, a family called the Leakeys, who spent years exploring East Africa. And the Leakeys have found remains of two distinct species of animals, both of which show human and ape-like qualities or characteristics. And some of these species thrived while others died out. The textbook asks why, and what are the precise links among them? At present, no one can answer these questions. See, again, they're going to make it seem like, well, we're just still figuring this out. We're still learning. It's not complete yet. That way they can add to the lie as time goes on. They can adapt and conform it to whatever the times require, if I make sense there. Then the textbook tries to say, hey, perhaps the wisest and humblest response is the observation of Lauren Isley, a noted American anthropologist, who says the human interminglings of hundreds of thousands of years of prehistory are not to be clarified by a single generation of archaeologists. They're trying to look humble now, although they're a bunch of liars who deny what God did. These people hate God. You got to understand. They seem like they're just smart scientists who we're just trying to find out the truth. We're just trying to know about our history and our ancestors and what came before us and where we came from. They may actually be genuine when they say those things, but I know some of them are not. Some of them just hate the Bible. And that includes the people who wrote this textbook. Let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool that he may become wise. Let him become a fool that he may be wise. We need to understand that the Bible is not saying that he's actually going to be a fool. He's going to be a fool in the world's eyes. The world's going to see you as a fool when you believe the biblical account of creation. They think they're wise, but they're really fools. So we're going to look like fools to them, but we're really wise because we have the real God. The wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. For it is written, he taketh the wise in their own craftiness. And again, the Lord knoweth the thoughts of the wise, that they are vain. You think these people are not vain? All these scientists? It's not real science. But they might not figure that out until it's too late. And I hope you're not going to be too late to figure that out. The Bible is true. And you got to figure out who you're going to listen to. Because it's all just a matter of faith, after all. The people who laugh and say that people who believe in a biblical account, who believe in the Lord Jesus as God, as the only way to the Father, those people, they have their own faith. Right? And like you have this weird faith, but their unbelief is a belief. They have a faith too. They have a religion too. Don't let them tell you they don't. A preacher, a pastor who's worth anything, who's actually studying his Bible and can speak on it and teach it, he's worth a whole pile of these professors and scientists and media personalities. And some of us know that already. Most people don't know that. And I don't care if he graduated or not. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed.